Chapter-20 Tribal Communities. Let's learn. Tribal societies, Gond, homes. Several social, economic and political changes took place during the medieval period. The Hindu society was divided into two groups, caste-based system and tribal society. As we have learnt in previous classes that the caste-based system was very rigid and created discrimination in the society. Unlike caste-based system, the tribal system did not have any caste distinction. All were equal and lived in harmony with nature. Tribal societies. India is a country which is diverse in every way, especially its demography. The country has the largest number of tribal people in the world after Africa. India has a diverse and rich ecosystem which enables a variety of tribes to grow and survive in the country. The tribal people are still dependent on hunting, agriculture and fishing. We know very little about tribal societies and groups of the medieval period because the tribal people did not keep written records. They preserved their customs and traditions orally. The tribal people did not easily let outsiders into their areas of habitation. The tribal people lived in remote areas such as dense forests, hills, mountains and deserts, which were extremely difficult to reach. As a result, outsiders did not have any contact with them. It was due to their isolation that the tribals were able to develop and preserve their separate cultures. Occupations. The tribal people were engaged in herding, agriculture and hunting-gathering. They depended on the natural resources of the region they lived in. Some tribes settled down in an area permanently, while others led a nomadic lifestyle and moved from one place to another with their animals. There were also people following other professions who traveled from place to place, selling their goods or entertaining people with songs and folk tales. Some tribal groups. Some of the major tribal groups in India included the Gonds, Santals, Khasis, Angamis, Bhils, Bhutias and Great Andamanis. All these tribal people had their own culture, tradition, language and lifestyle. Some groups were small and some were very large and powerful. Large groups controlled a lot of territory. In the northwest, the Baluchi tribe was powerful. In Punjab, the Khokhars and the Ghakkars were the main tribes. In the western parts of India were the Bhils and Kolis. Large territories were controlled by the Gonds in central India. Towards the east, the Santals, Chiros, Mundas, Khasis, Nagas and Ahoms were the main tribal groups, and in the south the Maravars, Badagals, Todas, Koragas and Vetars were the main tribes. This enabled a visitor to get an insight into many different cultures at the same time on their tribal tour of India. Info Hive. Bhils are popularly known as the bowmen of Rajasthan. Life of the nomadic tribal groups. Most of the tribal people were nomads. They were the members of a community of people who lived in different locations, moving from one place to another. Most nomadic groups followed a fixed annual or seasonal pattern of movements and settlements. They traditionally traveled by animal or canoe or on foot. When the supply of food for their animals got exhausted in an area, they moved to another area. They exchanged milk, wool, ghee and honey with the settled agriculturists for grain and various other products. Most nomads traveled in groups of families called bands or tribes. They reared and sold animals such as cattle and horses to people of the towns they visited. These groups were based on kinship and marriage ties or on formal agreements of cooperation. Changing nature of tribal society. Some changes have certainly occurred in the lifestyle of tribals in the present times. However, most of them continue to follow their primitive customs and lifestyle. Many of them have started leading a settled life and adopted better methods of agriculture. Many tribal customs, ceremonies and gods also became part of the existing culture. Info Hive. Jhum cultivation is a type of farming practice in which a forest land is cleared for cultivation for 3-4 years and then abandoned. During the medieval period, some tribes became dominant. Those that controlled key trade routes and forest resources became powerful. The Mughals attempted to extract taxes on service from these tribal groups. The Gonds and the Ahoms were two tribal groups that established powerful independent kingdoms. The Gonds settled over a large area. They could play no major role in political arena other than forming some small kingdoms at some times. The Ahoms concentrated themselves at one place and were considered as a political force and formed a state. Gonds. The Gonds are the tribal people who live in hilly or forest areas in upper Narmada Valley in central India, across the states of Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Chhattisgarh, Andhra Pradesh and Odisha. This region is called Gondwana or the land of the Gonds. Some of the famous tribes living in tandem with the Gonds were the Bhils and the Santhals. Like other tribal groups, they were a homogeneous group, that is, all their members had equal powers and rights. The Gonds preferred to live in hilly, forest and rural areas. They practiced jhum or shifting cultivation. According to the Akbarnama, Garh Katanga was one of the most powerful Gond kingdoms of its times. One of the most towering personalities of the Gonds was Rani Durgavati. After the death of her husband, she began to rule as the regent of her minor son. Akbar offered her the choice of becoming a vassal of the Mughals and thus live peacefully. She, however, refused to acknowledge Akbar's overlordship. So the Mughals attacked Garh Katanga in 1565. Rani Durgavati died fighting valiantly for the cause of her kingdom. During the medieval period, the Gonds became influential in central India and formed a number of kingdoms. They were divided into several clans, each under a Rai or chief. Kingdoms were divided into Garhs. Each Garh was divided into numerous Chaurasis, each of which was made of 84 villages. The Chaurasi was further subdivided into Bharots. Each Bharot consisted of 12 villages. The Gonds exported elephants to other kingdoms, including the Mughals. The Gond kingdoms survived for a long time, but gradually they lost their power. The English finally took over Gondwana in the 19th century. Info Hive. The name Gond probably comes from the Telugu word Konda, meaning a hill. Ahoms. As compared with the Gonds, the Ahoms showed distinct features of state formation. They lived in a limited territory and influenced the local population. They became prominent rulers. The name Assam has probably been derived from the word Ahom. Ahoms lived in the Brahmaputra Valley in Assam. They are believed to have belonged to Mao Shan tribe of China that came to India in about 13th century under the leadership of Chaolung Sukapa 1228 to 1268. They defeated the local rulers and settled here. Soon they became an influential group and mingled with the local population. Here are the pictures of coins of Ahom kingdom. They also fought against the Mughals. Aurangzeb managed to conquer Gadgaon, the Ahom capital, but was unable to keep it under his control for long. The Ahoms formerly ruled as vassals of the Mughals. The Ahoms had a tribal setup. The village community was very powerful. It allotted land to peasants. The peasants cultivated crops, particularly rice, on their land. People lived in houses made of bamboo, which was available locally. The most important Ahom ruler was Rudra Singh, who ruled from 1696 to 1714. He constructed the Karan Ghar at Sibsagar. This is a palace with 3 underground floors known as Talatal Ghar, and the upper stories are known as Karan Ghar. He linked the Dikho river with the Karan Ghar and his palace at Gadgaon by underground tunnels. These tunnels also worked as emergency exits. The Ahom kings adopted Hinduism. The first king to embrace Hinduism was Suhung Mung, who adopted the name of Swargnarayan. They also abandoned their own language and script, Thai, and adopted the Assamese language along with its script. The Ahoms celebrated the festivals of Durga Puja and Kali Puja annually with fanfare. They also observed a number of other tribal customs and traditions. In the 19th century, Assam became a part of British India, but the Ahoms still live as a minor tribal group in Assam. Info Hive. The Ahoms had a profound historical sense, as they have kept records from ancient times known as Buranjis. Recap. The tribal people did not easily let outsiders into their areas of habitation. Some of the major tribal groups in India include Gonds, Santhals, Khasis, Angamis, Bhils, Bhutias, and Great Andamanis. The tribal people were engaged in agriculture, herding, and hunting-gathering. The Gonds established a powerful kingdom in central India. Rani Durgavati was a famous Gond queen. The Ahoms were settled in Assam. Rudra Singh was a powerful Ahom king.